Welcome to another episode of the Cool Tools Show and Tell. Our special guest this week is Michael Garfield. Michael, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. I am an independent scholar, a multimedia artist, musician. I don't call myself an armchair philosopher, more of like a three-legged stool, armless guitar stool philosopher. And I've worked at the Santa Fe Institute at Long Now, as a contractor research analyst for Mozilla. And now I'm off exploring my own thing.
Well, welcome, Michael. It's a great background for some tool suggestions. I'm sure along the way you've picked up some great ideas. So, Michael, what would be a tool that you'd like to share with us, a favorite one of yours?
Sure. Yeah, I really love thinking about music performance as a kind of expression or exploration of cybernetic worldview and feedback loops and so on. So I've been a looping guitarist now and long-form improviser for well over a decade, almost 20 years. And one of my favorite tools is this the Boss RC505 Mark II Loopstation, which is a major step beyond the original model. It records in 32-bit floating point audio and has extensive banks of built-in effects for input and for the track manipulation. So I'll just give you a sense here with this device for people who can't see. You can hear I'm using it right now as my audio interface with a Biodynamic M88TG mic, and so I can do a little thing like this, and I actually can't hear myself super well in the recording, but I'll do a little thing like this, and then I can.
So what's happening is that there is I would say maybe a 1.5 foot wide control panel with lots of buttons. There's a little tiny screen. There are a bunch of knobs and lights that light up, and then you are pressing and twisting some of these knobs as you're speaking.
Correct. Yeah. So I get to run my 5 distinct tracks of unlimited overdub audio through a device. Usually I'm putting my guitar and maybe an iPad synth through it and my voice, and then you can carry the whole kit with a battery powered pedal board and a backpack and just turn familiar acoustic instruments into some sort of weird alien orchestra, which I adore, and I have released countless hours of music. And you can probably the coolest thing about this is that you can DJ other people. So I've done on and off through the years.
Tell me what that means. That doesn't. Yeah. What does you're going to DJ some other people? So for the uninitiated, right. What does that mean?
So I used to run residencies where either I worked with audience members and just volunteered musicians and non-musicians alike, or in other cases, I've MIDI synchronized my equipment to other people's equipment and have led long-form improvisations with people where I have sampled and remixed them on the fly. So like I can go in with no equipment of my own and then just capture clips from whatever else happens to be there. In some cases, I even set automatically set the tempo of the track by sending a text message to myself and measuring network latency, and then just using that as the as like in order to like time things. So it's a really interesting way of just showing people how, like, it's like a live cooking show, where you can show people like, or a juggler who just grabs whatever that people send them from the audience, and you can whip stuff up on the fly and just reveal the process.
Let's go back to the DJing other people. You said people sending. So let's just say you're in a room, you have a bunch of people, they're sitting in chairs. How do you DJ the other people sitting in the chairs? I mean, I'm really lost in terms of, be very, very, very specific about what.
Yeah.
I'm not very musical. And so are the people singing? How are they
Right.
sending you whatever it is that you're getting?
I will typically lay something down for people to work with because,
When you say
even
lay something down, what does that mean?
like beatboxing or drumming on the guitar or for instance, if I run there's a pattern slicer delay on here. So if I go, ooh, you get a kind of a staccato
Okay.
rhythm
So
from that.
you'll do that and then what happens?
And then I can say, okay, come in here and just make an animal noise or sing a little melody on top of that. And either people come up from the audience or I've done things at Burning Man where you pass the
Right.
microphone around in a circle. And I'm really interested, as I know you are and many other people who have appeared on this, in what can we do to lower the barrier of access to participation in a creative collaborative thing. So like actually somebody who I think is in some way doing this even better than I am. I mean, Bobby McFerrin used to teach people to sing in choir on stage on the fly, and now Jacob Collier is doing that really well. But instead of this just being like a conducting a live audience, it's like pulling people out one at a time. Like one of my favorite experiences of this was when I was running a residency in Austin. It just happened that one of my friends on stage knew that someone in the audience was a trained classical Persian devotional singer, and so I got him to sit up on stage with me for a few minutes and stack like 5 different vocal tracks on it, and then I just acted as though I had recorded the sample already. And you see, acts like Eskimo and Fortet do this kind of thing and just like chop and remix stuff up and create entire soundscapes out of a relatively small number of samples. It's really fun.
So you're in the room with the people on their chairs and you make some kind of manipulated noise and then they can contribute and then you'll manipulate that in some ways and you'll try and structure it into something that is like a song or shorter than a song or just a pattern.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah.
sort of by the end of the time, what do you end up with?
I end up with a kind of like a moody, psychedelic chill out most of the time. I mean, this can be done in like this device was actually uh, 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 Dub Effects and other beatboxers consulted on the design of this console. So it was really kind of intended for that kind of tabletop use. But I do a lot of stuff where you can run the loops in or out of synchronization with one another. So you can also do really kind of just spacious ambient stuff with it as well. And it really, for me, it just depends on a lot of my performances are structured and prearranged, but a lot are site specific improvisations. And so it depends on if it's like if I'm doing this as live music for yoga and meditation, or if I'm doing this, like one of my favorite shows was at the Boom Festival in Portugal at their Chill Out Gardens, which is like 2,000 people sitting by a lake with their shoes off at in this gorgeous, enormous cardboard stupa. And so it was like a very sort of, uh, relaxing, immersive kind of temple music set. And it was really fun. It just depends.
So then talking about this piece of equipment, the Boss console, the idea that is maybe some of this music you could do at home if you had a computer, but this is one that allows you to do this in real time. In fact, from understanding what you're saying, it's it's a way of mixing or generating some of these manipulated sounds, but you're which you could do almost anywhere, maybe with a computer, but you're doing it in real time and then mixing it in real time. Is that the major innovation here?
I think, you know, I mean, you can do all of this. I know when you had Amber Case on and she talked about her love for Ableton Live, which is why I didn't bring up Ableton
Mhm.
Live. You can do all of this kind of stuff in a laptop with the appropriate MIDI controllers. The fact that audio processing is being done in this device rather than in the computer is helpful. The fact that you can guarantee that it's all being done in a zero latency environment is helpful. The fact that it has uh, the the buttons, the thing, like one of the major innovations for this unit as opposed to its predecessor is that you don't have to go digging around in menus. You don't have to move a mouse around. So a lot of it is about the interface and the ability to mix and apply samples, and that it's got all of the inputs and outputs, and the like you can put in external MIDI controllers or CV control pedals and stuff like that into this. And sometimes I do run it with a computer, but I think it's just a very compact and elegant thing that has been very carefully designed to make controlling all of its functions at the surface layer of the interface very easy to understand and to execute in real time.
So is this very popular with DJs then? Is it the major market for it, or is this something that's used more in studios?
I'd say it's used primarily in live environments by one person acts that are either running multi-instrumental live setups or are beatboxers or are singer-songwriters like my friend Sydney Wright, who has it set up at her keyboard station when she performs. I mean, you can preload samples into this and basically use it to prearrange stuff, but I think the real kick here and what you see in the product demo videos is people building a track up from scratch in a live environment, where the fact that you're putting it all together in this way is part of the shtick, or like
Right,
the
right.
appeal.
So if somebody was not did not have a lot of equipment and wanted to sort of get into electronic music of all sorts, would having this unit substitute for a lot of the other things like synthesizers and whatnot? Or do you still need those in addition to this?
It really depends on your sound source. Like I think a lot of people are choosing their tonal palette, and it has a very distinct sound even though it has dozens of onboard effects. Like the kinds of effects that it has in some cases substitute for stuff that was for me originally a standalone, like a part of my pedal board that I no longer require. And I can make an acoustic guitar sound like a synthesizer. I will say, just as a sort of addendum to this, I use this electromagnet called an EBO
So
on the
you're
magnet
holding up a device, an object
handheld.
that looks like the letter J made out of a wooden block, about the size 3 inches high. Um, and you're saying that's a magnet?
Yeah, this is an electromagnet that directly drives the magnetic pickups in a guitar, and has a little blue light on it so you can see in a dark stage exactly where you're holding it relative to the guitar. And I use this, and I can pitch shift the guitar down an octave and drive the pickup in a way that it sounds like a bass synthesizer. But I think I've chosen to go as small of a footprint as I can with my live performances, and lots of other people will take this thing and it has many, many different inputs, and they will run multiple microphones and multiple different instruments into it. So it's a lot. Like the design philosophy of this is that it really provides people with a lot of flexibility in how they would execute this. I think, like I do see people running multiple different keyboard synthesizers, or, multiple vocalists and saxophones. And you can set it up so that some of the inputs actually feed into the live sampling workflow, and some of them do not. So you can basically sing and play at the same time, and your guitar will be looped and your vocals will not. It's extremely customizable.
Okay. So this is called the Boss RC
505 Mark
5
II.
Loop Station. And what does it run? I don't see.
I think it's still about $700 retail, but you can probably find really nice units on the secondary market for
Uh,
4 or 5.
uh-huh. Yeah, and it's sort of and does it require like is it plugged in or is it battery operate? I mean, does it run on a battery or does it need I don't know. Does it need a plug?
It it does require a power supply, but I use a rechargeable pedal board battery that
Mm-hmm.
powers all of my equipment from one thing. So this is something I can like whip out of
Yeah.
a suitcase with everything else.
Okay. So the Boss Loop machine. Um,
Yeah.
I'm sorry I was so dense, but I'm not that musically inclined. So, but I think I get it now. And it's mostly for performers rather than recording.
Yeah, yeah. This is all stuff that you might normally do in a studio setting through just normal digital audio workstation overdubbing.
Hmm.
Um, and looping in general actually comes out of the insight from acts like the Beatles that you can record onto tape and then cut the tape to a specific length and then loop from that. It
Right.
all, it comes out of experiments at the, BBC radio and so on in the middle of the last century. And so the earliest instances of devices like this, like the Gibson Echoplex, were tape based. And yeah.
Yeah. So a loop machine. So Michael, what's another favorite tool of yours that you want to share with us?
Well, I'll go to the other end of the spectrum, I guess, and I'll talk about the Brunton Pocket Transit Compass, which I
Okay.
received as a gift from my parents for my 12th birthday when I
Wow.
was an apprentice under the paleontologist Robert Bacher,
Hmm.
who uh, he was a consultant on Jurassic Park and uh, was a prominent figure in the movement of popular sentiment into thinking of dinosaurs as active and warm-blooded and intelligent. And I used to go out to Wyoming with him and do field work when I was younger. And he carried this thing around on his belt everywhere he went because this was before
GPS.
GPS was, retail grade, and this was before people were, had all of these different tools in their phone. And so this is an extremely beautiful, very carefully engineered compass with an azimuth and multiple bubble levels, and it's basically for surveying, so it can be attached to a tripod or you can use it in your hand. And when you close the case, it has a little stop so that none of the equipment moves around while you're
Mm.
walking around. And it's got this really nice leather case. And most of the ones they make now are plastic, but this is still a, uh, a powdered aircraft aluminum device that you can use to measure the inclination and declination. If you lay it on the ground, for instance, they would use this to determine the angle at which fossil dinosaur bones were situated in the earth to understand how the animal died, decayed, fell apart, was fossilized, the stratigraphy of the dinosaur quarry. And so this, it also, if you're out in the field, it's got a nice mirror in it. And so you can, make sure you can see how dusty you are. Uh, and it's just something that these days I don't do dinosaur field work anymore, but this was at the time that I received it, the nicest thing I had ever owned, and is a reminder to me of where I come from. And it's a compass, so it carries a lot of symbolism as far as trying to remember one's orientation and bearing in life.
Right. And the compass that you were describing is about the size of a palm, and it's not quite, it's kind of octagonal sided, um, and maybe about an inch and a half thick. And it opens up, it splits into half, and then there's also I don't even call it the sight line or something that flips out
Mhm.
too as well. And one half of the top is inside as a mirror. So um, I understand how, I mean, it's a beautiful piece of engineering and manufacturing. It's really well crafted. Would anybody use one now today?
Yeah, people, surveyors, and I think,
Would still use one rather than a GPS?
yeah, and I will say that also, I think probably most of your listeners know that bubble levels on your phone are noisy compared to analog bubble levels.
Hmm.
Um, I I think the ruggedness of this particular build as an instrument that does one thing. I know a lot of working paleontologists, and I assume that a lot of the work is now being handled by other devices. But when it comes to the making sure that you're not dependent on satellite uplink when you're out in the Gobi Desert, or that you're not your tools aren't going to run out of battery when you need to be out in the field for weeks at a time, and you're powering everything in your site off of like generators or solar cells or whatever. This is something that does not fail under any condition. It's waterproof. uh, there's only a handful of people in the world that actually repair these things. And so I did actually have I had to send it in to get it calibrated after about 25 years. And because the compass needle was starting to stick. And so it still requires a specialist to take it apart and actually do the work. But yeah, I think as far as like, this is something that I will keep for my kids as an heirloom. And if, we ever have a solar flare that takes out all the transformers in the northern hemisphere, they'll still find their way around.
So is there someone you can imagine that should get one themselves today? You have a beautiful one. Do you suggest that other people get one?
I would suggest that anyone who likes going off grid for camp, like orienteering, long-term backpacking trips, and doesn't want to be tempted by their smartphone, will find this very handy. I think that it's
You still
it
need
you know it,
you still need maps to use them, right? I mean, if you, that alone, the compass alone, I don't think is sufficient for you to find your way unless you have a map as well.
yes, you'd need probably a laminated map of some kind, uh, but or to have simply remembered. It depends on how familiar you are with the terrain, because you know we are at least biologically capable of enormous memory palaces. But yeah, I think there are probably a lot of. I mean, the fact is that they do still make these, and a lot of geologists and uh, geographers do seem to still purchase them. So, but it seems like they've shifted their supply chain into more kind of ephemeral plastic devices now, that people don't seem as interested on average on spending the $500 or $600 it takes to get you know one of these really fancy ones.
Right. So, is there a particular name or model for the one that you cherish?
This at the time was just called the Pocket Transit Compass, and now they make, like I said, they make them in metal and they make them in plastic. But when I was looking up the links for this show, I didn't notice a distinction in model number. That's just
That thing
differentiated
called a
by.
standard transit.
Yes.
The standard, the Brunton Transit, and
Mhm.
619
Mhm.
um, dollars, and it does include the leather case.
It does. Although, I will, just as a kind of funny aside, when I was learning from Bob Barker how to use one of these things, he kept his in a sock because he had been shadowed by the actor who portrayed a sort of satirical version of him in the sequel to Jurassic Park.
Hmm.
And actually, the guy actually like walked off with his leather case, and you can see Bob's original leather case in the film, but he never gave it back. So,
Alrighty. What a bummer. So Michael, what's the third tool that you'd recommend for our audience?
yeah, yeah. Similarly, because I felt like I needed to balance the kind of insanely advanced specific looper with some really simple practical, everyone might want one of these under the right conditions devices. This is the Black Diamond Storm R500 headlamp.
Right. So you're
It
holding something it's pretty tiny. I guess I don't know what's the size. What I would say that is about a couple inches, maybe, and it's black. And you're going through a number of different color lights, including green and blue. Um, so it seems to have more than one bulb there.
Yeah, it has three LEDs. It has a spot and a narrow beam white LED,
Yeah,
and it has an RGB LED arranged in a kind of triangular
right.
uh, face here. It also recharges with a micro USB, which I really like because I'm not a fan. I'm always looking for really high lumen
Right.
headlamps, and most of the headlamps that get this bright have a separate battery
Mm,
case that makes them really heavy on the front or on the back. And this whole thing is integrated, and I believe IP6. I can't remember if it's IP65 or IP67, waterproof, dustproof, but
wait. What does IP6 or 7 mean?
oh, so this is the degree to which you can keep things from getting inside the case. So this is something that you can take out to Burning Man and not worry about getting gunked up by dust storms. It will at least temporarily go underwater. I think that the weak spot in the build here is in uh, the little flap that goes over the micro USB port,
Okay.
but the rest of it is completely sealed and solid. And so this is something that I actually own two of these, and I find them useful even in the home because I stay up much later than my wife and kids, and I want to make it around the house without turning lights on. So for those who do not know, uh, red light is basically invisible to a lot of animals, and field biologists will use red light when they're out in the swamps trying to capture frogs or study alligators. It also will not disturb most people while they are asleep, so it's very handy for navigating all different kinds of environments without bothering other creatures.
Yeah. Okay. And so it's a headlamp that goes, it's the strap that goes around, and it has a little angled hinge to direct it. Um, and there are a lot of headlamps. And so this one, you're suggesting it has a very bright um, luminance. Is that um, one of the reasons why you're interested in it? Because it's particularly bright? Does it have a rating or of some sort, or some
Yeah, the
hotel?
Yeah, the top capacity is 500 lumens. That's with I think
Okay.
both white bulbs engaged.
Yeah.
But I am really it runs on a BD 2400 rechargeable lithium battery, and it is IP X67, which means it can be underwater for an hour, over 1 meter, sorry, for 30 minutes.
Wow.
The reason I like the brightness actually has less to do with any reason one might go camping with it under ordinary circumstances, and more to do with the fact that it functions as its own, like it functions as more than a headlamp under two circumstances I really want a light. One is cycling, where it can basically replace the front headlamp on a bicycle. And the other is, and it still be like visible to oncoming traffic. The other is that for 12 years, I used to paint at concerts and music festivals, and you don't always have access to a power supply. So I would, set up an easel in a plein air environment, and you want, in those spaces, you want to be visible to audience members at, 100 or 200 yards. So two of these is 1,000 combined lumens, and you can set up and paint for a whole concert and illuminate a rather large canvas and get, a true even light source where your colors are reliable.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about having to plug in or carry,
Right.
additional heavy
So
power.
instead of wearing them, you're mounting them on the side and making like spotlights then.
Yeah. It's like it's an answer to the dream that I had for years of being able to just carry around as much light as I needed.
Right. Cool. That's really great. So, yeah, I have seen the cycle ones, but had auxiliary batteries. But if you can get most of the light with this wearable that's rechargeable, that's pretty cool. And so this is called the Storm 500R. I don't know what the R is about. Rechargeable, maybe?
Yes.
The Storm headlamp, and that's about $75. And the fact that I love the fact that it's rechargeable, because that's one of the things about headlamps is if you're using them, they'll go through batteries really quick.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say about this that I think is really cool is that, obviously it has strobes and that kind of thing on it. But one thing that's really nice about this is that it is actually motion sensitive.
Wow.
Like if you tap the side of it, you can cycle through different lighting functions.
I see.
Just by whacking it without having to actually touch the button. So if you have gloves and or for whatever reason, you can kind of like, it will just allow you to tap it to cycle through different lighting, which is very handy.
Cool. Really nice. So the Storm headlamp is the thing you want if you want really, really bright light. And places like, Burning Man or other places, that is what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Could be seen from far away. So Michael, what's another fourth tool for you?
Yeah. The last thing I have is actually a game. It's a game I've loved for a very long time called FLUXX, FLUXX, designed by Looney Labs. I think they're, it says College Park, Maryland. This card game is, to my knowledge, unique in the world for starting with the most minimal set of rules imaginable, which is simply everyone starts with 3 cards, and then you draw 1 card per turn and play 1 card. But then each card, most of the cards in this game, are cards that change the rules of the game or change the goal of the game. So for instance, there are a few cards you put out in front of you that, like for instance, this card is the Eye of the Beholder. So the goal of the game is to have the eye and love on your side of the table. And if you do, you win the game. Now, or if someone else does, they win the game. And so, other cards will say you can only keep 3 in front of you at a time, or your hand limit is 0, or you draw 5 cards a turn. They've expanded the game a little bit so that there are cards that you can play that prevent you or other people from winning the game. but it all just starts with this extremely rudimentary skills, this extremely rudimentary set of
Yeah.
rules. And the thing that I love most about this game is that it requires no learning whatsoever to play it, and that on some level, pretty much anyone is on an equal footing, but it's not totally random. Because what I've learned after playing this game for well over a decade is that you can increase the likelihood that you will stumble on a winning combination of cards by ensuring that you can draw and play more cards than other people, or you can you can either increase the sort of metabolic throughput of your own
Hmm.
turn, or decrease it for other people. And so it's a really potent object lesson in very fundamental systems dynamical thinking. Like I emailed back when I was working at SFI, I emailed the inventor Andrew Looney to ask him if he had intended to teach people about evolutionary dynamics with this game, because I was like, this is actually, this is how systems evolve to have more optionality. Like I forget the paper that said that that power seeking is a metric of intelligence.
Hmm.
And he's like, you think about, what it means to, like when I had you on the show and we were talking about why people move to cities, and they move to cities for more opportunity. That's a competitive advantage.
Right.
And so there is something about this game that is kind of Taoist, in that you
Hmm.
can't plan it like you can't think through a decision tree in the same way that you can think through a
Yeah.
game of chess. And kids can win the game on accident, but it's not totally randomized in the way that war is, or dice. And you can develop a meta strategy for this game. And so it's a really good way of teaching people how to think about decision making under conditions of high uncertainty, or like how to think about how to how to adjust strategies based on relative uh, scarcity or abundance of
Okay.
options. And
Good.
they also, the last thing I'll say about it is that over the years it's become very popular, and they've licensed the game to like a number of different uh, third party things. So there's
You're
Star Trek
holding up a
FLUXX.
Star Trek flux, Tuhulu, Star, and a Monty Python flux.
Yeah, so there's a Cthulhu,
Yeah.
like HP Lovecraft flavored Flux. They have, a number of different generic ones, like I think
Uh-huh.
Chemistry
And
Flux.
how would
Yeah,
that be different? How would the Star Trek? I mean, in what sense does that overlap with
yeah.
Star
So
Trek?
I'll give you the example from Monty Python, which is that the game plays in pretty much the same way, but the goal of the game might be to accumulate three or more Knights of the Round Table,
Hmm.
or that it's just callbacks, so that you need the Knights Who Say Knee and the shrubbery on the table in front of you, or that your actions, a lot of the actions are the same, but one of the rules might be, I want to sing.
Okay.
You get, if you can sing a few bars of a Monty Python song during your turn, you can draw an extra card.
Okay.
So it's totally absurd,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
gives people an in who can appreciate different,
Does it
thematic.
reward collaboration and cooperation?
No, not really. I mean, I think any competitive game, like the economy, for instance, can always reward collusion in the game behind the game. Like, you want your wife to win in, a four-party thing. So there's always, whatever's going on inside the ring,
Hmm.
there's always the chance that your perfectly designed garden is actually subject to forces beyond the system. But no, it's not really, there aren't really competitives, except in the sense that you can play like a two-headed giant
Okay.
strategy, where
Yeah.
multiple people are playing the same hand.
Because recently we've really gotten into cooperative games as um, I just enjoy cooperative games a lot more than competitive games. And I was just wondering if there was a variant of that, or whether that was also part of it, or whether maybe that's instead of Star Trek, maybe there's the cooperative FLUXX version.
Well, I will say that I think, competitive behavior tends to emerge in, like James P. Carson's finite games in systems where you actually have something to win or lose. But in this game, you can play multiple rounds very quickly, and loss is often sort of surprising and funny.
Hmm.
So even losing this game does not, carry a great burden with it. Winning does not often feel like you have bested someone intellectually. So I think this game is mentionable in that even though it is a finite zero sum outcome per game, that it is collaborative in a deeper sense in that it simply rewards the coming together in the enjoyment of something that is full of surprises.
Hmm. Cool. Okay, that's called FLUXX. And FLUXX, as we have heard, come in many different varieties of brands, maybe, and otherwise, I'm just trying to get a sense of how much it costs here. I don't. Oh, $20.
Yeah, $20.
$20 for the retail price. FLUXX with two X's. The
Mhm.
card game with ever-changing rules. I love the ever-changing rules because that is a mark of a dynamic system. So, and presumably you could change your own rules if you wanted to, or you add your own rules.
They do offer blank cards.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. So that would be fun too. And there's something about changing the rules in the middle of the game that is very challenging and exciting.
indeed.
So,
Yeah.
well, that's a great one. So Michael, we have a few minutes left. Do you have anything that you want to share with passion project or something that you are working on that you want our audience to know about?
Yeah, I left a stealth AI startup at the like in spring of this year to rebrand the work that I'm doing independently, the Future Fossils podcast and all of the stuff around that, to a project called Humans on the Loop, which is an exploration of agency in the age of automation and the way that uh, that language models and other media forms like what K. Alato McDowell calls neural media that reveal us as adaptive networks and are themselves adaptive networks that we sense and they sense us, like how all of this stuff changes what it means to be human and what is possible for us. Because I think I know that like it's my opinion that the allocation of our attention is one of the most underappreciated and potent ways that we can contribute our agency to the unfolding of things. And so I'm really interested in shifting the conversation away from the, how to avoid worst case outcomes with exponential technological change and into how the reconstitution of self and the way that, for instance, curating data for your own bespoke language models as a kind of 21st century evolution of the process of essaying or journaling is a way that we can start thinking in uh, in new ways about our kind of constrained expression of will in a new way in which the self is understood as operating across multiple scales and so on. So I'm interviewing a lot of people for this. I am writing a lot of essays about how I think what it means to be human and what it means to understand our accountability to one another and our dependence in co-arising with the rest of everything else on this planet, how all of that's changing. And then I'm going to take that stuff and one of the art forms is going to be to train models and to translate all of the collective insights of that discourse into new forms that people can interact with in a more agentic way than simply absorbing essays or podcast conversations.
So
And then another thing,
do you have a place or URL or somewhere to go? Do you want to direct people to what you've done so far or what you'll do in the future?
yeah, that's all happening on my Substack right
Okay.
now. It's
What's the name of that called?
Yeah, that's just michaelgarfield.substack.com.
Okay.
Right now, it's it's called Future Fossils, but by the time this airs, or at least by early December, it'll be Humans on the Loop.
Okay. Humans on the Loop as a Substack, and people can go there to keep up with what you're doing in your explorations.
Yeah, learn to be good wizards in the age of AI, basically.
Yes. Well, these are spells. The prompts are just basically little spells that you have to whisper to the AI to get it to do what you want it to do because they're not very obedient. That's my one experience of using them for 2 years it's really hard to have them obey what exactly you want to do. Sometimes you want to be surprised, but getting them to follow orders is tough.
Well, you're the one that pointed this out to me for the first, years and years ago. You said reproducing human intelligence is less interesting than
Right.
growing exotic intelligences from
Alien
which
intelligence. Yeah, I call them aliens. Yeah, so we're learning to deal with alien intelligences. So it sounds like you're on that path. Michael, thank you so much for volunteering to share some really cool tools, things I didn't know anything about, which is really great. That's my love, finding out about new worlds. And the world of music is partly new to me. So thank you for that and for the other tools that you're suggesting. And people, I suggest check out your Substack, The Human in the Loop.
Thanks a lot.
So thanks again. We are glad that you are enjoying this issue of the Cool Tools Show and Tell. I just want to remind you that we also have some other coolish material on our YouTube channel here. So please subscribe, comment, and like. This show and tell is also available in an Audible podcast form. If you just wanted to listen to us, you can subscribe to the podcast wherever you subscribe to other podcasts. And if you're already just listening to us, you should know that there is a visual version of this show on our YouTube channel where we're actually showing the tools. And there's a little bit more visual component there. In addition, the same folks that publish the Cool Tools website, that's all of us, me, Mark, and Claudia, we also put out a free newsletter every week. It's very, very short, just kind of 1 page or less. And we recommend 6 very brief items that are very succinct and easy to read. So you can deal with it in a couple minutes. And every week we bring you the 6 coolest things that we've uncovered and want to share. It's called Recommendo with 1 M. Just go to recommendo.com and you'll be able to find it there. It's free, and you'll get it in your mailbox every Sunday morning. So join 80,000 other subscribers to hear what we're thinking about and what we find cool that week. It's actually one of the most popular things that we produce. We also publish other newsletters as well. One of them is a very short, free weekly, like Recommendo, but for travel. It's called Nomadico, and it gives you 4 short recommendations for people who work while they travel or they travel while working. Another one is called What's in Your Now. It features things that are significant to you right now. It could be things that you carry every day or something very near you. We have another one that's about tools and tips for your workshop, and one that extracts the best stuff out of the self-improvement books. You can get all those at our website, and they are also all free. And finally, I want to mention the fact that while our newsletters are free, they're not cheap. They're handmade by humans in California, and if you want to support us, we have paid subscriptions for each newsletter on Substack. So when you sign up for a paid sub, you're making it possible for us to keep creating them free for everyone else. So thank you for being a fan of any type, and we'll keep producing stuff if you let us know that you enjoy it. So thank you.